Welcome to another morning, and I don't know how long I've been doing these morning moments. And started out an email to my staff, just thoughts I wanted them to have, and then I thought, the deacons probably be a help to them, and started emailing it to deacons, and then other people wanted them, and so it just you can sign up on our church website for a written morning moment, just a thought each day, and that was Monday through Friday. And then on Saturdays, often I send out a marriage moment, just a thought, and that's all email. You just sign up for it on our church website, and they go all over the country. But then someone kept bugging me, saying, "You ought to do a video of this." And I thought, man, people are busy; they don't have time to watch anything. But then COVID hit, however many months ago, and I went ahead and started doing some video, and started this, and then for a while I did a morning and evening. I did an evening post. And wasn't Bible, as history and just news of interest type things going back. Wasn't news of the day so much, but anyway, so there's enough people bug me. Now I've kept the written one up Monday through Friday, and kept the video up most days, and there's some days I'll miss. If you look for it and it's not there, go back later in the day or go the next day. But then the young people told me that young people listen to podcasts, and what's the difference between listening to my sermon and listening to a podcast? It's a different app that comes on the phone or whatever. So then I do some podcasts and do those usually Tuesday and Thursdays. Those are posted, but all of our Sundays and Wednesday sermons are also posted on our church podcast. So there's all kinds of stuff out there from everybody in the world. But if you want, for whatever reason, you want to hear me, you don't hear enough of me at church, you're welcome to, choose your, they say, pick your poison, whatever it is. But I was thinking about the fraudulent world we're in, and of course you hear all kind of COVID stuff, and this week we had one of our ladies. She's been sick for a long time, a loved one of a member, and she's had some serious health problems, and then she got pneumonia. And that anytime could have been fatal with her health situation. And then she got tested positive for COVID, and we just thought we're going to lose her. She lives in another state far away. And so we've been praying, and now she's not needing any oxygen. Now, she still may go to heaven, maybe by the time you see this. But you know what? God's so good, and he takes care of his own, and he loves us. And but that's the closest anyone is to me personally that's ever been near death because of COVID. And she might have been in the same spot with pneumonia. Somebody said that there's basically no flu deaths or pneumonia deaths the last year because they call them all COVID just to make it look. I just want you to know something. This is more than medical. I'm not saying people aren't getting sick, because I know people who've told me, "Preacher, I've had the flu before. I've never been so tired. I've never been so felt like a truck ran me down." And to lose your sense of taste, what a discouraging thing. I love to eat, and I love good food, and only thing, I thank God for my metabolism that I get to eat like a pig and not have to look too much like one. But I'm not saying people aren't getting sick. I'm just saying there's something more to it than that. We've never had a time when there's forced and coerced and people paid in lotteries to try and get you to do things. And then the double standards and inconsistency of, remember when they first wanted us wearing masks, they told us how to wear them. You put it on clean, and then you never touch your mask, because when you touch it, whatever happens, you get germs from the things you've been touching. Now it's on your mask, and you never touch, you don't hear any of that stuff anymore. You know why? Because people weren't doing it. And so we don't want to discourage anybody. So as long as you're wearing a mask, and at first it was any old thing wrapped around your face, then it had to be this, and then it had to be that, and then they found out people that were wearing masks got COVID, people that weren't wearing masks got COVID, or they didn't. Either way, and it's a mess. It is just a mess. And I want you to know something. Trust in the Lord, Proverbs 3 says. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and you be as safe as you want to be with your health. But I just want to tell you, this medical situation, it's way bigger. It is way bigger. And I can just tell you, remember that not too long ago, President Obama had a big birthday party, whenever that was, and had 700 guests or whatever. Nobody criticized him getting a group together, but let a bunch of conservatives get together and they'll panic, just like the riots. You could get away with a riot, but our friends, a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago, they were getting together in Sacramento to protest the way the governor was handling things, and he made it against the law to peacefully assemble. And that is a pretty serious constitutional right. And yet, because of health reasons, he made it against the law. But no one outlawed rioting, burning buildings, taking over neighborhoods. No one outlawed that. Can you not say? I guess if you listen to me, you probably agree with me, and you probably tell me more stories than I know. But I want you to be in 2 Corinthians chapter 10 in just a minute. Just a thought, though, going from the mess we're in. I personally, that's just me, I wouldn't debate it, but I don't think the election of President Biden was right. I think something was corrupt. When a president couldn't get 100 people together for a rally and he couldn't speak, and there's no cognitive, no clear communication anyway, and another guy 3 times a day could get 10 to 50,000 people together, there's no way the one beats the other in an election. It just couldn't happen. It defies all logic. And whatever anybody else wants to say, you're not going to convince me something was crooked. Well, and I've mentioned this in church, what can happen is conservatives can start saying, well, our votes don't matter. Then we quit voting, and then we're in big trouble. So I think you ought to vote. There's a recall Newsom vote going on, and whatever you think on it, I think you ought to vote. Your opinion. And I think our voting is corrupt, and we all know dead people vote, and I think nothing's going to matter a whole lot until the voting situation gets straightened out. But I think we can do what we can do. I can't make, my kids are grown, but when I had little children, I couldn't determine what they would do with right or wrong. You ever notice, you that have had children from little babies, it's like they're already bent a certain direction. This kid is a slob, and this kid is just neat, and this kid is more articulate. One of our children, I won't call names. I think people maybe don't like being illustrated, but I think my kids have gotten used to it. But one of our children picked up words, and I'm talking just barely able to talk, just putting sentences together. And they would use words that had nothing to do with the sentence they were talking about. But they'd pull this word out of the air that they'd heard and put it into their sentence. And I'm thinking, you don't even know what that word means. And it doesn't fit in that sentence either. That's a personality. And, everybody's our 4 kids are so different one from another. And so God makes them, and genetics and whatever else you want to call it. But God makes these children. As parents, our job's to polish, our job's to train and to guide. But they have to make the final call, especially once they get to be teenagers. You can't force a teenager to anything. They're going to think what they think. And that's how, to me, that's how it is with the government. I do my part, whatever I can do, voting and, paying taxes and trying to be a decent citizen. I'm not going to throw trash out the window of my car. I'm just not going to do that. I was with an older preacher one day, and he threw some soda can or something out the window. He said, hey, it keeps the people employed who pick up the trash. I thought, if it had been a younger preacher than me, I'd have pulled the car over, made him go back and get it. But then I'm not a crazy environmentalist or a tree hugger, and I'm all for dams so we have enough water to drink, and the nature will fix itself up along the way. But the point is, I'm going to do my part however I know how to do my part. And I'm going to do the best I know how. But I can't fix the world. And I'm not worried about fixing Washington, but I will vote. And I hate what the Republican Party has proven itself to be. Self-centered, compromising, only concerned about their own paycheck and power. They're not concerned about right or wrong. But I'm not going to fix the Republican Party. But I have sent money to political parties before, but the last year I've gotten these things, send money here and I mail them back. I'll never give another dime to the Republican Party. Now, I'll give money to candidates, but I won't give it to a candidate through the Republican Party. It's going to go to that individual candidate. And I want the Republican Party to know they burned a bridge with me. and they're done. I don't hate any of them, but I'm done. I don't trust them. And that's how I am with the medical field and the judicial world and the FBI and the Justice Department. They're all a bunch of crooks. But I'm still going to do my best to be a good citizen because I can do my part. And then I'm going to leave the big decisions to God. But if you look there with me at 2 Corinthians chapter 10, I want you to look at a verse, verse 4. Verse 3 and 4, 5, for though we walk in the flesh, we live in this old body, we do not war after the flesh. The battle's not with the fist. Now, if somebody comes and attacks me, I want to at least try to defend myself. I'm probably not in the condition to do that like I used to be, but that's why you carry things that make up for the strength and difference. But we don't war after the flesh. Verse 4, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. So my weapons are now not carnal. They're not physical. They're spiritual through God. My weapons start here. They go up to the throne of grace, and then by the power of God, they come down to accomplish what God wants it to do. And in that next verse, he goes on, verse 5, casting down imaginations. If I'm going to fight the fight, if I'm going to win the battle, it's going to be from my heart to God, down to the world, into the problems. It can't be fleshly, me trying to fix this thing. But it also needs to be in my heart, casting down, verse 5, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. See, I need to be careful that I don't let this whole world discourage me so that I quit doing my job in the warfare. My job is to trust him, love him, commit my world to him, pray to him, seek his power and his blessings, and then my job is to do my job. But it's his power that gets it done. But if you let the world discourage you, if I let the garbage and the corruption, whether it be political or medical or whatever it be, economic, the housing industry, the gas prices in California. My wife and I drove over to Yuma, Arizona. She spoke at a ladies' conference, and I just drove over to spend the drive-in time with her, and so she didn't have to drive alone. And we crossed the border, and instantly, here, gas is this price. You drive 1 mile, and there wasn't a gas station that close because of the desert there, but just drive across the border, suddenly gas $1.50 cheaper a gallon, and I could throw a fit and holler and yell or whatever. That's earthly. And I'm just going to go to God and commit California to God and let God take care of California. But I do have to guard my thinking, or I'll get so discouraged, I'll quit praying and seeking God. I do need to cast down the garbage thinking that all is lost and it's hope. Hey, it's not hopeless. Let me explain something. God wins. I've read the end of the book, folks. We win. The people that hate you as you try to do right, the people that hate the church, the people that hate the things of God, they lose. They lose. I've read it. It's all here. And the people who love God and seek to serve God with their frail human lives, they win. They absolutely, completely, thoroughly win. Not perfect people, because there aren't any perfect people. Frail, weak human beings who seek God and seek to please God, they win. So no need to be discouraged. But if you're not careful, verse 5, we need to cast down these imaginations, these high things that exalt themselves against the knowledge of God. I know God's good, but I can get so discouraged. I think things are going to go bad and it's hopeless. I know God is faithful, but I can get so worried. And I ultimately am doubting the faithfulness of God. And so I'm going to give you a quick story. Of course, most of you know both of these, but I'm just going to read something. About Abraham Lincoln. He was defeated. First of all, he was very uneducated, very poor, but defeated for the state legislature in 1832. He failed in business in 1833. He had a nervous breakdown in 1836. He was defeated as Speaker of the House in 1838. He was defeated in a nomination for Congress. He didn't even get nominated, and then lost the renomination in 1849. This guy who he just had problems. He was defeated for the Senate in 1854. And he was defeated in the nomination for the vice presidency in 1856. In 1858, defeated again for the Senate. 2 years later, 1860, Abraham Lincoln became president of the United States. Now, how did he do it? He had to keep some encouragement down here because the world around him said, loser, loser, loser. The world around him, they were posting things on Facebook about him and YouTube, and they were criticizing him and slandering him. In 1860, there was no Facebook. And by the way, it was a better day before Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff. Those things are digital sewers. And I know there's some good in there, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, keep track of your Aunt Gertrude or your granddaughter's school play. That's between you and God. But the thing as a whole, when our social media sites are censoring conservative news and conservative posts, they're corrupt and vile. And that's why I've gotten off all social media. We do this, YouTube, because the guys in the church, our young guys run the church pretty well, and that's what they want to do, and so we do it. And I don't think it's wrong. I just don't trust any of it. But all the stuff on Abraham Lincoln, and he became absolutely the man who changed America to this day. By the way, I'm pretty sure he's the one who started the Republican Party in defense of the slaves, too. You can follow that all along the way. If you don't know the history of the Democrat Party, the Democrats were the people with the white hoods who were the KKK people. And it was the Democrats who voted against the Civil Rights Amendment. It was the Republicans who voted for the Civil Rights Amendment. And it's all just it's a corrupt world we're in. But anyway, the point is this inside person, this internal strength. There's a lady, and I mentioned her a while back, but I know you either forgot her or you didn't catch that. And I don't know whether I did it in writing or whether I did it in an audio or video. But I read about Joan Murray. And Joan Murray, she was on the Titanic in 1912, on the Titanic. And unbelievably, 1,523 people died. She lived. And she just went on. And 3 years later, she's on the Lusitania when it was torpedoed by the German submarine in 1915. She didn't die there either. 2 ships sunk underneath her. At that point, she should have been smart enough to stay on land. But 12 years later, Mrs. Murray boarded the Celtic in 1927, and it became famous because it collided with the Anaconda not far off the eastern shore of the Atlantic. And the Celtic, it had its own issues. It got in 3 collisions out at sea. And I'm thinking, why did you get on a boat that had 3 collisions already? But here's the point. If we don't let life discourage us internally, we can make it externally. We can. And if we'll just get up, do what needs to be done, but you're going to have to, 2 Corinthians chapter 10, you're going to have to bring into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. Which of those verses says casting down? Verse 5, you're going to have to cast down some things. You have to say, I'm not thinking that way. There are some things I don't look at because I don't want it in my head. It will affect me. I am not Mr. Strong. I'm not Mr. Atlas. And I'm not indestructible. I'm a frail human being, and I've got feelings, and I am much more the romantic than the critic or cynic. I'm much more the love and forgive than I am the anger and the bitterness. That's just not me. And I don't take any credit for it. That's just how I was brought up or what genetics made me. I don't know. But so I've got to guard my head because it'll mess with me. And of course, the devil knows that. And that's why a lot of stuff gets thrown at me. That's why I don't look at a lot of stuff. Years ago, our pastor told us, don't read anonymous letters. First thing he said, first thing I do when a letter comes to me, I look down for a signature. If there's no signature, I throw it in the trash. And if there's any money in it, I'm sure he kept that. But anyway, I do that. I'm not going to read anonymous mail, and I'm not going to sit and try to mentally or verbally defend myself because lies and hate, you can't mentally argue with hate and bitterness, because that's a heart thing, and it's a mess that we're in. But you know what we're told in Ephesians 6:10? It says, "Be strong in the Lord." Ephesians 6:10, be strong in the Lord, not in ourselves. Colossians chapter 1 says we are to be strengthened with all might according to His glorious power, not my power, God's power. Paul told Timothy in 2 Timothy 2:1, be strong in the grace that is in Christ Jesus. See, all this is about God's strength. It's us going to God, getting our Bibles, taking time on our knees. And I'll tell you, I have learned, especially the last few years, when I feel weak, though, if I get enough time on my knees, I get up strong. That doesn't change the circumstance very often, but it changes me. It changes my ability to handle the circumstances. And 1 Peter 5:10 says that the God of all grace will make us perfect, establish, strengthen, and settle you. It's God who will work in you. It's God who will help you. I want to encourage you. Take care of your head, what gets into your head. Guard your heart. Keep the good stuff going in, and keep godliness going in, and cast down these imaginations, this garbage stuff. If the doctor tells me there's no hope and you got 6 months to live, I'll probably get a second opinion. What can he do? Say I'm going to go in 4 months, but I'm not saying it's got to all be good news, but I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm going to think, well, God, I got 6 months. What do you want me to do with it? And I'm thinking, take surfing lessons, go climb Mount Everest, something like that. If I'm down to my last few months, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pray for people. I'm going to love some people. I'm going to look at what I would do? I'd look at my resources financially and say, what can I do in the next 6 months that will make my retirement in heaven better? And I'd up my giving to missions. I'd up my giving to a good church, or find some young couple starting a church and give them my car or whatever it might be. I'd find a way to take my physical assets and make sure that they're used for God. If I were to have physical financial things, and say my children were in my estate, I might say, all right, now you kids, this is the trust, but in the trust, I'm tithing for you already. If each of my kids were to get $10,000 or $100,000, whatever, dollars out of my trust, I might tell the executor, when all the bills are paid and everything's said and done, if there's X dollars left, the first thing you do with it is you tithe to the church, whatever church I'm attending at the time. You tithe to that church. And then I'd send a note to the kids, just so you know, we've already tithed on your inheritance. Now, if you want to give more than 10%, that's up to you. But the tithe was electronically removed before you got your check or whatever. I just think, what could I do if I had 6 months to live, or 6 years, or 6 days? If I was in the hospital and they said you're just days away, I'd make sure somebody had some gospel tracts, and I'd make sure every single person walked in my room got a tract. What am I worried about? Offending them? Hey, I'm going to be dead in 5 days. Tomorrow I'll be dead in 4 days. What am I worried about? Them being mad at me? Who cares if they're mad at me? I'm going to give them a tract. I'm going to find any Muslim doctor that comes by and give him a tract and say, go next door. I want a Christian doctor working on me. And I'm not against the Muslim doctor if he's a good doctor. He's got his faith's all messed up, but he might be the best doctor. I have no idea. I'm hoping I go to heaven before I get to know too many doctors, although it's not normal. But hey, look, keep your head, keep your heart, and don't let the bad stuff overwhelm you. And it is hard. I understand just a little bit. Some of you got burdens bigger than I could ever imagine. I don't want to know your burdens, but I do know this: the battle rages in here. If Abraham Lincoln could keep going, it was because he kept going inside. And this crazy woman, Joan Murray, who kept getting on boats, she didn't have a brain in her head, or she really liked excitement. I have no idea. But so that's an internal thing that keeps you going. Proverbs 4:23, I think it is, keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. All the issues you're going to influence starts right in here. Keep your heart. Keep your heart. If you know you have a disease, you might want to read up on it, but might you not want to read too much? Because some of these diseases, you don't want to read about them. You don't want to know what's coming. And we've got a God of all grace who will strengthen, who establish, strengthen, and settle you. We got a great God. Stay close to him. He's our hope. Hope you have a great day. Thanks for spending a few minutes together.